Working on it as partners really ever since. And as I mentioned earlier, Bill was on the search committee, which ended up with me, and we became connected through that experience in a very deep way. And he has become one of my closest comrades here at CBST. And with Bill, we've really created this together, and it's a great model of a partnership between a congregant and a rabbinic leader to create something that benefits not only our community, but the world at large. So to Bill, I'm so deeply grateful for this friendship and partnership and believing in CBST since you came here, which was in 1973. So, a few words, friends, Bill Fern.
Thank you. I have to apologize for my voice. It started going. You can hear me and understand me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I will start some comments 20 years before Rabbi Kleinbaum came here, when the synagogue first started. We began not really knowing what we were going to create. We had high hopes, but nothing that we never dreamed that it would become what it has come today. And I remember thinking back then on how we began in a small little area of a church on 9th Avenue in their recreation room, and how we struggled to put together a group. And finally along came the High Holy Days, and we decided, although we could run our own service very easily, there were a number of educated people there, but we really needed a chazan. So Irving or several other people, whoever they were, found a chazan who came and whom we paid, and who came and ran the service. There was some rented room we used. We had no ark. We borrowed a toga. The ark was something like an orange crate with a curtain in front of it. It was that primitive.
A closet.
Huh? A closet? Okay. A cabinet, a closet with a curtain in front. And the chazan got up there and sang, and to our dismay, we discovered that he could not hold a tune. He would get us all started, and then in the middle he would change key. Then we would adjust and change to the key that he started, and he would change key again. By the end of the service, and it was not a long service, it ended fairly early. Walking home, I said to Cooperberg, my buddy, I said, Irv, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. I had a vision of years stretching ahead of me, going through that kind of an experience. And Irv, who had a great deal of common sense, said to me, Bill, it's going to get better. Believe me, it's going to. Well, I wanted to believe him, and I half believed him, and indeed it did get better. But that was how we started. When we became a little stronger and started running having a newsletter, I discovered that, some little while after that, discovered that someone had subscribed to the newsletter who was not a member of our community, or who was passing the newsletter along to somebody else who was not. And it turned out that there were people here in New York in the Jewish community who were worried about us. They wanted to make sure that we were not going to create some kind of harm or scandal or do damage to the larger Jewish community. We were looked at. Nobody interfered. Nobody said anything. And I might add that nobody helped. And we didn't ask for help. We did it ourselves. Then we grew, managed without a rabbi, although one of our members served as rabbi, who had the yeshiva background. And finally, our president, Mel Rosen, at the time the AIDS crisis was really becoming difficult, Mel Rosen decided that we needed a rabbi. That was not a popular decision because we were so used to being independent, doing it our way. Many people didn't want a rabbi telling us what to do. There was that fear in the background. And finally, we agreed, and a group was formed. The congregation, even though it wasn't very large, had factions. There were the old-timers, women, the new guys, one group, another group. There were a number of factions. And Mel Rosen very wisely decided to put together a search committee consisting of one member from each faction, so that whoever had a question about what was happening, what was worried, could go to the person that he knew or she knew and say, is it going to be okay? And felt reassured that that particular group's interests were going to be protected. There were 8 of us. We met in people's apartments, and we must have considered, 40 or 50 rabbis. Many of them never got beyond the telephone stage. But we ended up interviewing a dozen or 15, I can't remember any longer. The agreement was with the board that we would come up with the 4 strongest candidates, and the board would then pick the one that they thought was most appropriate. And so we kept that in mind, and we interviewed people. Many we discarded very, very quickly, others we interviewed a second time. And Sharon Kleinbaum came along, and she was interviewed 3 times. We gave her a hard time with a number of difficult questions. We did a lot of background checking. And finally we decided that this was the person who, we came up with 4 people, but of the 4, this was the one that was going to work. And so we reported back to the board. There was a meeting, and we met with the board, and they said, well, who were the 4 people? We said, we know we were supposed to come up with 4, but what we're going to do is present you with 1. She is so head and shoulders above everybody else that there's no point in presenting to you with any other person. Well, they were pretty miffed about that. They thought they should have a say in it. That was the original agreement, but finally they agreed, okay. And then they started asking us questions about her background, where she came from. By this time, we knew quite a bit about Sharon, because a group of us not only called up her previous congregation, but we'd gone to hear her preach. I think it was up in Hartford, Connecticut. A whole group of us went up there. Was it Hartford?
West Hartford.
Hartford. We took a trip all the way up to Hartford, where she was speaking, and there was a meeting there with at the time you were with the Reform
Religious Action Center
group. That was,
the Religious Action Center.
Okay, anyway, meeting with a whole group of Reform people representing the central office of the Reform movement to this gathering. I'll never forget the sermon. It was on Abraham. It was the portion with Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar. And rather than preaching on Abraham or Sarah, she preached on Hagar. And I thought, wow, talk about an unusual subject, an unusual approach, and we were impressed. That part went very well. So when we spoke to the board at that meeting, we gave all that backup information, and then they asked us some questions about her. What about this? What about that? And then somebody said, "Now look, if we do hire her, how long a contract should she have?" They directed the question to me. I said, 1 year is not enough. You can't really tell in 1 year. 3 years is really too much for a first contract. 2 years is appropriate. But I'm telling you that after 2 years, she will stay as long as she pleases. Then they got scared. She will stay as long as she pleases. They're already losing control. And so she will develop a following in 2 years that will be so strong that there won't be any question. And that is indeed what happened. There was a 2-year contract. She developed a following. Well, shortly after she started, I went down to see her. We talked about the interview process, and I said, it was really tough on you. I really want to work with you. Would you please excuse any difficult questions I gave you during the interview process? She looked at me, she thought, well, and then she said, okay. And I knew we were going to be all right. A couple of months later, I went down there with an idea. I wanted to honor my friends, Irving Cooperberg and Rittmaster. You've all heard about how extraordinary Irving was, and he was indeed. I came down, I said, Sharon, I want to talk to you about some ideas I've got about honoring Irving Lou. And I came up with some ideas about prizes, various other things. And she listened very, very politely. And then she said, those are very tactfully, said, those are very good ideas, she said, but really, what we need here is, what I need here is a lot of help. And I thought, oh my gosh, just hire this woman. She said, I need help. And then she began to talk about the things she needed help for. This was when AIDS was really taking a terrible toll in our congregation. And she truly needed help. I said, well, how can we help you? What kind of help? And we worked out the idea of an internship program. One intern was what we were going to start with to see if it worked. And then, once we got that worked out, we would add another intern. See if we needed more than two, if two were going to be enough, and so forth. And we agreed that was what we were going to do. And that was when she said to me, you have to keep hands off nicely, but essentially, you can't be involved in telling these interns what to do. Just because you're going to be supporting them doesn't mean you have to say. I agreed to that. Sharon talked a little bit earlier today about other things we agreed with. The interns were going to be known as the Cooperberg Rittmaster interns. We also agreed that they would come from any liberal branch of Judaism. We didn't expect Orthodox interns to apply, but anyone else, no matter what the source of no matter what the institution that intern was studying at, would be okay. Could be men, could be women, could be gay, straight, didn't matter. But they had to be good. And shortly, I think after we started, a year or two later, we began with having congregational members interview those interns. Life in those days still was difficult for gay people in a way that young people today can't imagine. We were still socially pariahs for many people in the community. And so when we knew that we were going to have interns come in, we presented them to the congregation for what they were. That is, people who were studying to be rabbis for Klal Yisrael, for everybody, all Jews. And here we were, essentially a group of people who were looked askance at, who were now undertaking the job of helping to train rabbis for everybody, including those who looked down on us. That was an enormous source of pride for us, because what we decided was that no matter who it was going to be the same criteria that we used for picking a rabbi. Could be man, woman, gay, straight, but they had to be good. There was a high standard of excellence we had when we chose the rabbi, and we were going to apply that same standard of excellence to the interns. And we did. We had interns who applied, and some heard how much work it was, and so they didn't apply. We learned later. But we applied, and we got the best. And you've heard some of them this morning. That was one of the secrets of the success of this program. the fact that the congregation took enormous pride in training rabbis for everybody. No matter who we were, no matter who they were, that was what we were doing. Now that's not so quite important perhaps, but in those days it was a real source of pride and self-respect and a sense of general well-being that we could do that. After congregants were included in the search committee for interns and interviewed them, and then the intern would get up on the bima and either give a cross or lead a prayer or whatever it was, that congregant could look around at people and say, "That's my rabbi." All the friends of the people on the search committee knew that was their friend's rabbi up there. And slowly, going through the congregation, group by group, person by person, there was a sense of ownership, a sense of really being invested in the success of the people up on the bima that created the interns and had them speak this morning to you the way they did. Everybody here cared then, and that feeling continued. The thing I found interesting was that one of the graduate interns said that he was impressed because he was trusted with a task that had been given to him. Trusted to get up in front of 2,000 people and give a sermon. Trusted to give a prayer. And from a teacher's point of view, because my Aristotelian essence is essentially that of a teacher. From a teacher's point of view, it wasn't trust at all. It was belief and expectation. We knew that whoever was there had been chosen because he was the best. The rabbi just expected him to do that. And so I found it amusing that the student saw it as a matter of trust. We saw it as a matter of expectation and belief. In any case, it worked out. Another reason why it worked out was it worked out. Another reason is really the personality and the kind of person that Sharon Kleinbaum is. Sharon Kleinbaum, being excellent, and having been chosen by that criterion, is not afraid of other people's excellence. That's a secret that people in this congregation really don't think about much. I serve on the board of the Reconstructionist College, so I see a lot of rabbis. Not every rabbi has that self-confidence to choose people to work under him or her and not be afraid of being outdone. Many people who serve as rabbinic interns in other congregations go in there and they get a job. They do the Sunday school, or they do this, they do that, but they do things that are not competitive with the rabbi. Our rabbi is not afraid of competition. That's why we have an excellent staff. That's why we have excellent interns. That's why interns are given to do anything and everything that they can during the year, so they end up having a full range of practice. Because this congregation takes it for granted, but it's not so in every congregation, where the people at the top are not afraid of being outdone. They feel confident because they are competent themselves. When I worked with public schools, I could see that. When superintendents hired, for example, and I sent out student teachers, I knew which superintendents were going to hire the best student teachers and which were going to hire the ones at the bottom. The guys who were afraid of competition always took the ones who were weaker. The stronger ones took the ones who were strong. That's another secret for the success of this program. We're not afraid of being outdone here. And what has happened over the years is that this congregation, from having been a ragtag group of pioneers back 45 years ago, has now become one of the most powerful, innovative, competent congregations in the United States. And our rabbi is listed on those lists of 10 best or 20, whatever the best rabbis. So she's in the top dozen or 15. That's who we've become here. Part of that has rubbed off on the interns. But at the same time, those interns have had an effect on this congregation. And you saw it this morning. They, because of the kind of people they are, and the level of discussion that you heard, and the kinds of concerns they have, that has affected us as well. So it's been really an interactive process. I tried at the Reconstructionist College a couple of years ago, and was successful in getting them to agree that we need more interns in Reconstructionist synagogues. Basically, the college needs more locations, more openings for internships like this one. Not all our congregations are this good, frankly. You better not tell them I said that, but this is a plum internship. It's the best in the country, actually. So I said, look, we're going to establish an internship here at the college. We'll call it the Sharon Kleinbaum internship, and it will move from congregation to congregation. We will support, pay the intern the first year. Then the internship moves to another congregation, and we're going to hope that that first congregation sees the value of it for their congregation, their rabbi, that they will continue on their own. We've now done that with 3 or 4, I think. 4. One of the most successful ones turned out to be the son of a colleague of Sharon's from the Rabbinical School, and whose father was a colleague of Sharon's and someone else who's a Reconstructionist rabbi, and an exceptional young man, really good, who got everybody very excited. So when the paid internship moved to another congregation, that congregation kept him on for another year at their expense. Very excited about it. And we're now beginning to do that. We formed a group of rabbinic mentors to get together in the hope that these people would exchange ideas and methods and encourage each other in an attempt to spread this internship at this level in a larger number of congregations. And that's a beginning effort. But the movement of the trajectory of what has happened in this synagogue since our beginning until now is extraordinary. They mentioned that every 2 years there's a retreat for interns who used to serve here. And I've gone to that for a couple of hours each year. That's also impressive. The kinds of people that we here at CBST have trained are extraordinary. We can take great pride in that. We also have to thank the interns for the hard work they're doing. True, we decided we were going to give them some extra money so that they could put in some extra hours, but the fact of the matter is that these interns, when they get done with 1 year here, they can go out and take a pulpit. Nobody else can say that. They can do all the life cycles, they can do all the holidays, they can work with people in pastoral situations, they can work with kids. It's amazing what we do. So I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank the interns that are here for all the work they put in. I want to thank the congregation for having put so much emotion and energy into it. I want to thank my friend and colleague, Sharon Kleinbaum, for being excellent.